Hi explorers, this is Jodie from JMS Explore. Today I am going to be talking about a strange murder that happened in New South Wales, dubbed the Pyjama Girl. Included in this video are old photographs and an old news film, and then me taking you to where it all happened. On September 1st, 1934, just outside Albury, New South Wales, Australia, the burnt corpse of a young woman was found stuffed into a culvert under the road. The medical examiner found that the body had been placed into a hessian bag. A towel had been wrapped around her head, which had been savagely beaten in, and only a few fabrics of her clothing remained. Although a bullet was found lodged in her throat, it was concluded that the injuries to her skull and brain were the cause of death. With no way to identify the body, it was initially preserved in ice at the Albury morgue. A sketch was put out in the newspapers and a modified photograph of the corpse circulated. The metropolitan newspapers soon descended on Albury, and before long the deceased woman had been dubbed the Pyjama Girl for the fabric remnants which had been identified as the remains of yellow and white pyjamas that were found, and thus began one of Australia's longest and most sensational murder mysteries. To assist with the investigation, the police preserved the body in formalin in a zinc-lined bath and moved it to the University of Sydney, where over the following years she was viewed by hundreds, if not thousands, of people who still could not identify her. It was not until March 1944, 10 years later, that the police got their man. Commissioner of the New South Wales Police, William Mackay, together with most of Sydney's most powerful people, attended Romano's, a fashionable Italian restaurant. He noticed his waiter, Antonio Agostini, whom he remembered from before the war, was looking rather agitated, so he invited him to the police headquarters, where Agostini confessed to killing his wife in Melbourne 10 years earlier. Here is the handwritten records that outlines the prisoner's information and photo. The Pyjama Girl's killer's prison file opened by Public Record Office Victoria on January the 1st, 2020. Let's now take a look at some old footage.
Determined to solve the murder, the New South Wales Police Commissioner, Bill Mackay, adopted a habit of putting a fresh team of detectives on the case every few years. In 1944, 10 years after the body was first discovered, a group of 3 dentists were asked to make yet another examination of the Pyjama Girl. They noticed a tiny gap in an upper bicuspid which had not been recorded previously. After all that time in the formalin bath, one of the 2 porcelain fillings had fallen out. Excited, the dentists quickly discovered the other small filling that had been overlooked in Albury. The dental chart of the Pyjama Girl now matched that of Linda Agostini in every detail.
Suddenly they came back to the Agostini theory, and then it so happened that Tony Agostini was well known to Mr. Mackay because he was employed at Romano's restaurant where Mr. Mackay habitually took his lunch, and indeed he used to wait on Mr. Mackay. Mackay simply contacted Agostini and asked him to come in and have a talk, and when he came in he confessed to the whole thing.
It was as simple as that after all?
It was as simple as that after all those years.
After the protracted drama of the hunt, the inquest and subsequent trial of Agostini came as something of an anticlimax. The constant blaze of publicity surrounding the case had attracted eccentrics, some of whom disputed the identity of the Pyjama Girl as established by the police. But the coroner, judge and jury were unmoved. The body in the formalin bath was that of Linda Agostini, and she had been killed by her husband, dumped in the roadside culvert and set alight. No motive was ever established, and surprisingly, Antonio Agostini was only convicted of manslaughter. In 1948, after serving less than 4 years, he was deported to Italy, where he remarried and eventually died in 1969.
There's no doubt that the Pyjama Girl was the most famous corpse in Australian history. By the time the case was over, she'd been reconstructed, put on public display, and even made up with lipstick and rouge in the hope that someone might identify her. But if she was the most famous victim in Australian crime, perhaps she's also the most forgotten. Linda Agostini lies here, in plot 8341 in Preston Cemetery in Melbourne. It cost the government hundreds of thousands of pounds to find out who she was. But when she was finally buried here, there was apparently not enough government money left to put her name on the grave.
I was born in Albury and moved to Halong with my family when I was 4 years old in 1975. I remember my parents telling me about the Pyjama Girl when we drove in the car to go to Albury. My dad even stopped the car one day at the bridge on Halong Road near Splitters Creek to show me the location. So here I am again today, exploring the location and sharing it with you. The Pyjama Girl case details do not really add up, and some reporters and other people are still investigating it after all these years. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below after hearing what I have to say. In 1944, Antonio Agostini confessed to Commissioner of New South Wales Police, William Mackay, that he had killed his wife in Melbourne 10 years earlier. Antonio described how he had accidentally shot his wife and in a panic had driven her over the state line to Albury, where he had poured petrol on her and set her alight to hide the evidence. While that may seem clear-cut, there are some details about this case that don't quite sit right. Antonio Agostini's statement was inconsistent with existing evidence. He mentioned the bullet wound but said nothing of the intensive trauma to her skull and brain, mentioning later that he may have accidentally dropped her body. He referred to the gun as a revolver when it should have been a pistol, something he would have known with his history of military service. He also stated that he had turned off the road before he got to Albury, but to get to where the body was discovered from Melbourne, he would have had to have driven straight through town. He described pouring petrol over the body when it was kerosene that had been discovered at the crime scene. His timings were not consistent with the crime, and he was vague about key details. The physical evidence identifying the body as Linda Agostini also contained discrepancies. The victim had blue eyes, whereas Linda's were brown, and the body proportions caused concern with the nose and bust sizes between women not matching. Did this body really belong to Linda Agostini? Or was Antonio Agostini used to force close a high-profile case that after 10 years was beginning to make the police look incompetent? What do you think? Antonio Agostini was an Italian immigrant who had arrived in Australia in 1927. Linda Platt was born in England and had arrived in Australia via New Zealand the same year. They married in Sydney in 1930. In his long and detailed statement, Antonio told the police that his wife Linda had a drinking problem, and one reason why they moved to Melbourne in 1933 was to get Linda away from her drinking associates. However, her drinking had continued and she had made Antonio's life a misery. One Monday morning, he had woken to find her threatening him with a revolver. In the ensuing struggle, the gun had gone off and killed Linda.
Still, the police did not give up, and on March the 27th, 1939, Superintendent Matthews, acting on information received, rushed Detective Wilkes, in charge of identification inquiries, to Albury. Again, the How Long Road leaps into prominence. It was believed that a lake near Albury might possibly hold the clue to the Pyjama Girl mystery. Fearing that the culprit might attempt to remove any incriminating evidence, the police stood guard at the lagoon all night, until the Albury Fire Brigade arrived on the following morning, when the members of the brigade took their part in attempting to elucidate this 4-year-old mystery. The large fire hose found a new use. Vast volumes of water were pumped from the lake until the muddy bed lay exposed. There was something in the lake. Once more, the culvert murder is front-page news. Searching in the slimy bed of the lake, detectives found gumboots, shoes, slippers, blouse, and part of a silk dress, all of a size which could have been worn by the murdered girl. Stains on the dress blouse might have been blood. Were these the clothes worn by the Pyjama Girl at the time of her death? Police believe that they may be. A peculiarity of the slippers and gumboots was that they were scarcely worn. Could there be any reason other than a sinister one for disposing of these perfectly sound articles? On the shelves of the silk manufacturers, a fabric was eventually found which resembled the material in the dress blouse. From this, experts have constructed a dress believed to be identical with that worn by the victim. Thus, with Detective Jodine's mask of the dead woman's features, a figure constructed from her body measurements, a replica of her dress, and numerous drawings from police photos leading to identification of the woman. £1,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the murderer. Or was it murder? Was the shooting an accident and the subsequent battering of the woman the results of panic? Somewhere in this great city may be someone who could solve this crime. Can you help? Or must the Pyjama Girl murder remain forever one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries?
As you can see now at the Pyjama Girl location, it has changed. The old brick drain is no longer there, and the bridge has been updated. But still to this day, this horrible crime that happened in 1934 is remembered by the towns of Howlong and Albury, and the past generations telling their families about Linda Agostini, dubbed the Pyjama Girl.